For years, Cheryl Hines was the woman everyone adored, the blonde Florida girl who made it big in Hollywood. She wasn't born into fame, she fought for it. From waitressing in small cafes to auditioning for commercials she never got, Cheryl knew rejection before she knew success. But then came Curb Your Enthusiasm. Her role as Larry David's charming yet sharp-tongued wife made her a household name. She was funny, elegant, approachable, a rare blend that Hollywood rarely gifts anyone twice. But fame in Hollywood is a double-edged sword. The same cameras that capture your best moments are the ones waiting for your fall. And Cheryl's fall didn't come from a bad movie or a scandal on set. It came from something much darker: politics. When Cheryl married Robert F. Kennedy Jr., she thought she was joining a family of American royalty. The Kennedys were glamorous, powerful, and tragic all at once, a dynasty wrapped in both charm and curse. But she didn't realize that by saying "I do," she was also saying goodbye to the version of herself that Hollywood loved. At first, the tabloids celebrated her fairy tale romance, like Hollywood star marries into America's most famous family. The wedding photos were everywhere. Cheryl's glowing smile, the ocean breeze in her hair, Robert's polished grin. But behind the flashbulbs, whispers began. People wondered, what happens when comedy meets controversy? Because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wasn't just another Kennedy. He was the rebel, the conspiracy theorist, the man who questioned vaccines and challenged the government narrative. Cheryl, once the light-hearted sitcom actress, suddenly became the wife of a political outcast. The industry that once adored her began to quietly close its doors. Invitations slowed down, directors stopped calling, talk shows that once begged for her appearance moved on. And the cruelest part? Cheryl didn't even say anything controversial. She just stood next to him. Hollywood, for all its talk about freedom and expression, has its unspoken rules, and Cheryl broke one without even realizing it. She married the wrong man at the wrong time. The golden girl became the outsider. Still, she smiled for the cameras. Still, she laughed at red carpets. But behind that perfect smile was a growing fear that her career was quietly slipping away, not because of her talent, but because of the man she loved. And in the quiet moments, when the lights went out and the headlines faded, Cheryl began to ask herself the question that would haunt her for years: was love worth the price of silence? The storm began quietly, as it always does in Hollywood. No one slammed a door in Cheryl's face. No one sent an official letter saying she was out. It started with silence. Subtle, creeping silence. Her agent stopped answering calls as quickly. Invitations to charity galas suddenly got lost. Her publicist advised her to lay low for a while. But what does that even mean in a town where being invisible is the same as being forgotten? Cheryl tried to ignore it. She thought maybe people were just being cautious. Maybe the industry would separate her from her husband's controversies. But Hollywood doesn't work that way. It's a town that loves a clean image more than it loves the truth. And soon, whispers turned into full-blown headlines. Curb Your Enthusiasm star married to America's most dangerous conspiracy theorist. From sitcom darling to Kennedy outcast. Is Cheryl Hines complicit or controlled? It didn't matter that Cheryl had never publicly agreed or disagreed with her husband's views. In the court of Hollywood opinion, silence is guilt, and guilt is a career death sentence. Talk shows that once adored her suddenly found no room for her on their guest lists. Late-night hosts, the same ones who laughed at her jokes for years, began using her name as a punchline. One called her the queen of bad choices. Another joked that she must have caught the crazy by association. The audience laughed, and Cheryl watched from home, heart sinking, realizing that laughter can cut deeper than any insult. Even her closest friends grew distant. Fellow actors, producers, and comedians, people who once called her family, started avoiding her. Some didn't return messages. Others offered awkward smiles and excuses. No one wanted to be photographed with her. In a city built on appearances, guilt by proximity is poison. And yet, Cheryl stayed silent. Not out of weakness, but out of loyalty. She loved her husband. She believed in compassion, even when she didn't share his beliefs. But Hollywood doesn't understand nuance. It understands sides. And Cheryl was now on the wrong one. When Robert announced his presidential ambitions, things got worse. The press went wild, and suddenly every camera that once captured Cheryl's charm now zoomed in for a different reason, to see if she'd break. Paparazzi followed her at grocery stores, asking loaded questions. Do you support his anti-vaccine claims? Are you ashamed of your husband? Is this the end of your career? Each time, Cheryl smiled, the same Hollywood-trained, polite smile. But inside, she was breaking. Because in that world of red carpets and flashing lights, perception is everything. And once the industry decides you're problematic, it's nearly impossible to come back. Still, Cheryl tried to hold on to herself. She took smaller roles, tried producing, even did charity work, anything to remind the world that she was still the same woman they once admired. But the headlines wouldn't let her breathe. They painted her as complicit, brainwashed, even desperate. And the irony? She had always stayed out of politics. But now, no matter what she said or didn't say, Cheryl was trapped in a narrative she never wrote. Hollywood had turned its back. The very town that once crowned her its sweetheart now whispered behind her back like a jealous lover. And in those late nights, sitting alone in her quiet mansion, she began to realize that fame isn't just about being loved. It's about being allowed to be loved. And in that moment, she wasn't. Dramatic, emotional, confident, glamorous, sassy, gossip style, expressive, captivating, sarcastic, flirty, playful, bold, energetic, scandalous, humorous, entertainment news tone, engaging, fast-paced, confident storyteller, Hollywood style, pop culture vibe, charismatic, cheeky, lively, persuasive, confident narrator, spicy tone, confident female host, morning show vibe, confident male host, entertainment reporter style, dramatic pause delivery, juicy storytelling tone. She thought of Larry David, of Hollywood's fickle applause, and the sting of public rejection. And yet, despite it all, she smiled. Not because she had forgiven them, though she had, but because she had finally understood something essential. Survival isn't about approval, it's about truth. Her legacy now wasn't measured in box office numbers, nor in red carpet appearances. It was in the stories she told, stories of women, of love, of moral courage, of standing beside someone you love even when the world condemns you. It was in the projects she nurtured, the independent films that gave voice to stories otherwise silenced. It was in the quiet strength she embodied, in the way she carried herself into every room, undaunted by gossip, rumor, or political scrutiny. Hollywood watched, some in awe, some in disbelief. The same town that had once whispered her name with mockery now had to confront its own vanity. Cheryl Hines had returned not as the star they once adored, but as a woman untouchable, defined not by the approval of others, but by the unwavering fidelity to her own heart. And her story became a mirror for those who followed her, a reminder that fame is fleeting, but integrity endures. That betrayal, no matter how deep, can be transformed into strength, that the world may try to cancel you, but no one can cancel your soul. Cheryl knew Hollywood would always be a city of masks, of mirrors, of ever-shifting loyalties. She had once tried to fit in, to please, to navigate its treacherous tides. But now she stood above it all, observing rather than participating, teaching without preaching, and inspiring without trying. Her greatest victory wasn't in applause or recognition. It was in reclaiming herself, in defining her life and career on her own terms, in showing that sometimes the most scandalous act in Hollywood isn't breaking the rules, it's refusing to bend them. And so, as the lights of Los Angeles glittered beneath her balcony and the echoes of gossip faded into distant noise, Cheryl Hines understood something few ever do: that the real legacy of a star isn't measured in accolades or social clout, but in courage, loyalty, and the unwavering truth of one's own heart. Hollywood had tried to erase her, but Cheryl had not only survived, she had transcended. And that, above all, was the story they could never take away.